these notes, I think what's positive, though, about these notes is that it really shows the jury is actually doing their job and deliberating. Unlike what Donald Trump kind of was saying that concerned me, was he was delegitimizing the jury system by saying I can't get a fair trial in New York, people are going to be biased against me. If that were the case, they would just have a knee-jerk reaction and potentially just convict him. And this really shows they're listening, they're thinking, they're looking at the evidence. They want to read back, they want the law read back to them. They want certain parts of the testimony so they can analyze it. And whatever the verdict is, we have to respect it. And I think the legitimacy of the jury system and of the criminal justice system is important, whatever the verdict is. But I think this is a very positive sign because it shows they're taking their job very seriously and they're being thoughtful.
So Judge Merchan said deliberations are going to start again at 9:30 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, and he has dismissed the jury for the day. The jury is leaving.
The reason he's doing that is because it is going to now take the court reporter and the parties hours, literally hours, to agree, to identify in the transcript exactly which portions of the transcript are responsive to these notes. Because it's not like they said, we want all of the readback of David Pecker's testimony. They want a certain specific part of David Pecker's testimony. And that could be in multiple places, right? There could be a question on direct or a series of questions on the direct. There could be more questions later on in the direct and then parts of cross. And what's going to happen is the court reporter is going to have to identify each and every place that is responsive to that note in both direct and cross. Then the parties are going to have to agree that that's the only place in the transcripts that it exists. And then it'll be read back to them. The court reporter is the one who does the read back, both of the judge's instruction and of the testimony in New York. So you'll have the court reporter who will be speaking for a long time tomorrow. But I bet even at 9:30, we might not get started because the jury will come in, the judge will send them back to continue to deliberate. They can continue to deliberate even while the parties are answering the notes and looking for things. It's not like things stop at that time. But it's going to take some time to get the answers to these questions to the point where it can then be read back to the jury.
So Tom Dupree, is the reason that he dismissed them for the day just because it's 4:07, almost 4:30, which is when he would dismiss them anyway? Might as well just let him have the 20 minutes kind of thing?
That's probably what was going through his mind. I mean, it is interesting, given that the jury, they deliberated late last night, so you could at least see maybe the jury would be interested in continuing to deliberate, but I could also see them wanting a break. I mean, they certainly had a very long day yesterday. They finally got the case today, and now they're just going to be sitting there awaiting this information that they have indicated is very important to their decision-making process. The thing that interests me, Jake, by this, you asked about the significance, is that these requests came, relatively speaking, early on in the deliberative process, which tells me this is also a jury that kind of got down to business. In other words, they didn't spend hours and hours kind of, venting or, unburdening themselves of their feelings in the case. They immediately plunged into the record and within a reasonable amount of time decided these are the specific pieces of information we want to hear back. We want to get more because we've already identified these bits of testimony as critical to our deliberations. So they're moving quickly.
And as Karen assessed, Judge Merchan told the attorneys that they cannot leave the courtroom. The jurors have left, but the attorneys cannot leave the courtroom until they agree on the transcript that will be read back tomorrow. Tim Parlatore, are we going to find out, we in the public going to find out what 4 specific requests from the testimony, 3 from Pecker, 1 from Cohen, that they requested? Is that something that we will learn, or no, this is all just private jury information?
Oh, no. So the judge has read the note aloud into the record. So everybody who's in the courtroom knows what specific questions they've asked. And so now both sides are trying to compile what is responsive to that. And there will be some back and forth about sometimes one side will try and add in an extra page that they think is advantageous to them, and the other side will say that's not really responsive.
Right, sneaking in something
and so
to cook it.
This part of the process is interesting because I agree with you that a lot of these things would be a whole lot easier if we just give them the instructions. Giving them the transcript is a little bit more complicated. Because you have to remember these transcripts are not certified yet. They do contain errors. Sometimes when you get the draft transcript, you see that the court reporter accidentally wrote down no when the answer was yes.
Right.
Things like that. And so you can't give them the transcript, but this gives a great opportunity for the attorneys to see kind of where is the jury going, and for the client to be able to lose their mind just a little bit more and trying to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
And what I always find interesting is not just the questions asked, but during the readback, I watch the jury and I see what are they doing. And sometimes you'll see facial expressions. I've seen it even where, when it comes to that key line in the testimony, all of a sudden one juror will look down at the other and see? and that's when you sit there and the client's like, is that a good thing?
Right. That's funny.
That's because readback is in open court.
Yeah.
So we will all.
We're all going to know what they read. And Jamie Gangel, right now, you talk about clients going crazy. And again, for any defendant, this is not fun. And Donald Trump is a defendant, so it's not fun for him right now. And Todd Blanche, his defense attorney, asked the judge, can my client, the former president, Donald Trump, go across the hall while the lawyers are working on finalizing the transcript, which could take hours? Judge Merchan said that's okay, but Trump cannot leave the building. And Trump is apparently leaning back in his chair with his arm up on the chair back, gesturing as he talks to Blanche and Beauvais, two of his attorneys. Blanche is laughing. Trump, we saw him walk out. Trump is up from his seat, leaving with Don Jr. Total deliberation time today, 4 hours, 37 minutes. And Jamie Gangel, the guy's running for president. And I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, but this has got to be frustrating. He's stuck in this courthouse.
Well, let's put aside running for president, because there were a lot of days during these 6 weeks where he could have gone out and campaigned, and he chose to campaign from the courthouse steps or the courthouse hallway. I will say, I think look, Donald Trump doesn't like anyone telling him what to do or where to be. Look at Tim Parlatore nodding. So he doesn't like the fact that he has to stick around the courthouse. And someone I know who was in that holding room with him, tells me it is not a very pleasant place. Like the rest of the building, it is old, it is dirty. I gather there's an old air conditioning unit in the window. Not Donald Trump's style.
Yeah, that courthouse is a dump.
But
I don't think I'm
the
talking
one
out of
thing
school.
about being in the holding room, we're not watching his face in the courtroom.
Right, so he doesn't have to worry
Correct.
about
He has privacy.
anybody commenting because he closed his eyes for 5 seconds. Everyone stick around. The jury has stopped deliberating for the day after 4 hours, 37 minutes of deliberation. So we just want to note that we have stopped. Where is it? We have stopped our clock right here. Let's bring in CNN's Caitlin Collins, who's outside the court. And Caitlin, what do you make of the jury's notes late this afternoon and this rather early dismissal for the jury?
Well, Jake, obviously, this is a question that the Trump team is going to be trying to dissect, just like we are, in the sense of what this means for them. At first glance, I mean, obviously, if they're trying to read David Pecker's testimony, which the prosecution framed in their closing arguments late into the evening last night, I was in there inside the courtroom as they did that. I mean, the prosecution framed it as damning for Donald Trump and saying that what David Pecker, someone who had no axe to grind against Donald Trump, had to say by putting Trump in the room and talking about how he was aware of this plot to pay for stories that could potentially be damaging to his chances at winning the election. That was how they framed it. So it's notable that the jury wants to see that, but they're also asking to see testimony from Michael Cohen, who Todd Blanche framed as this complete liar, as part of his closing arguments to the jury as well. So obviously it's a lot to interpret there. Everyone's going to be trying to read it, including Trump's attorneys, who you saw Trump leave the room along with his entourage a few moments ago. But Todd Blanche and Emile Beauvais and Susan Nicholas are still inside that room at the defense table, as they are going to be trying to sort through exactly which parts of this transcript are going to be read back to the jury tomorrow. I think the other thing that is still to be determined is on the jury instructions and what is being read to what is going to be read back to them, whether or not it's all of the jury instructions, which took about an hour today, or if it's certain parts of the law or certain parts about reasonable doubt, witness credibility. All of that is going to be key aspects that people will be looking for when the judge does return with the jury tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. to see what is it that they have questions about. It's this fascinating process where they can only communicate via the foreperson for the jury, that is juror number one. He is just automatically the foreperson here, sending these notes and clarifying what it is to the judge. They can't have these lengthy conversations with him, or if they do have conversations, it's where the judge has brought the entire jury into the courtroom to make sure that they all hear what his instructions are, and it's not just any kind of private discussion between the judge and one juror. The importance here is that they are all 12 on the same page here, and so obviously the Trump team will be trying to figure this out as well. I should note, Trump left the courtroom, Jake. He can't actually leave the courthouse, though. He has to wait until all of this is done. He's obviously been here since early this morning.
Caitlin Collins, thanks so much. Appreciate it. The Trump trial jury has just been dismissed for the day. This after they sent the judge 2 notes. One to rehear 4 different parts of testimony, 3 from David Pecker, 1 from Michael Cohen. Another to hear parts of the judge's instructions to them again.